at 6,366. In terms of recoveries, good news, at least 2,039 of the 6,366 have since been discharged from hospital after turning negative, recovering from the particular virus. In terms of death, our numbers 148, almost approaching the 150 mark. So those are the latest statistics by the government regarding the coronavirus update in the country. So remember to continue staying safe, observe all the measures as we continue to fight this particular pandemic, even as we await for communication from the president on the 6th of July on what next in terms of some of the measures, the restrictions that have been put in place to try and contain this particular pandemic. But for now, let's focus on other stories that are also shaping the news tonight here in the highlights.
We have hundreds of young people, especially those in vulnerable communities in the city, who are today earning a living, and thousands of households are receiving water closer to home.
Building Bridges Steering Committee is set to hand over its report to President Uhuru Kenyatta following expiry of its term.
So we will continue to support decentralization of testing and bringing the testing closer to the people.
Government set to decentralize COVID-19 testing to aid in early detection as total fatalities rise to 148. And security agents on the spot for alleged atrocities while implementing COVID-19 containment measures. Welcome back. Our sign language interpreter this evening is Lucy Mwaura. Let's begin with the stories that have been making headlines throughout the days, and we begin with the stage now being set for the country to yet again refine its governance structure following the expiry of the term of the Building Bridges Steering Committee on Tuesday. The task force indicated completion of its assignment and recommendations will soon be submitted to the president. Amid massive anticipation, opinion is divided over the most practical avenue to be used to adopt its recommendations. But as Catherine Achieng'a now reports, keen observers believe that the recent purge targeting lawmakers could be an indicator that the state is keen to push the proposals through Parliament. Let's take a look.
Just before the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic, the political scene had witnessed increased activity as debate over the Building Bridges initiative took center stage. At the time, the Yusuf Haji-led BBI task force was also conducting a series of BBI validation hearings. But now, curtains on the committee's mandate have fallen after expiry of its mandate on Tuesday. In a statement to newsrooms, the Yusuf Haji-led committee expressed confidence in its final work, noting that it was able to receive proposals from a myriad of stakeholders, including citizens, civil society, faith-based organizations, cultural leaders, the private sector, and experts. Through these consultations, the task force says it is now in a position to advise the state accordingly on the proposed administrative, policy, statutory, and constitutional changes that may be necessary for the implementation. Amid expectation on the committee's recommendations, Pandits hold the view that the success of the task force depends on how well it has executed its mandate.
I would judge the steering committee on the basis of, whether they did a good job in terms of giving people an opportunity to speak on that report and give feedback. I would also judge them on the basis of when eventually they bring out what they've been doing, whether it contains sufficient mechanisms for implementation of the recommendations that people would then have validated in that report.
But with widespread talks over a possible push to have the proposals pushed through Parliament and not through a popular initiative, Analyst Joseph Samaha says this can only happen if the contents of the final report eliminate issues that demand a popular initiative.
If the report comes out and they've dropped all those recommendations, then perhaps it may be that the parliamentary option is open, the parliamentary route is open. But if they've not dropped those options from the task force report, and we still expect changes in or amendments in the structure of governance, for example, then the constitution dictates which way to go, and that would have to be to go to the people.
This narrative especially appears fueled by a recent purge of leadership in political parties and House committees, a move that Samaha terms as not surprising.
If this expected referendum that we are talking about and BBI reforms as such a top agenda of President Kenyatta and such a top agenda of Raila Odinga and other political leaders, I expect they would whip their parties to support. They would do everything, including whipping, to support. So in that context, yes, I wouldn't be surprised if that is one of the reasons, or the reason, why all this whipping is going on.
The Building Bridges initiative is centered on addressing issues such as ethnic antagonism, lack of national ethos, inclusivity, devolution, divisive elections, security, corruption, shared prosperity and responsibility. In the opinion of Samaha, any proposal that will provide solutions to what ails the country's leadership and governance must be considered a win for Kenyans. He also argues that it may be imprudent to wish away the Building Bridges initiative before exploring the options it presents in seeking to address issues that have for long threatened the country.
It is up to the people of Kenya to determine how BBI initiative will end. So I would say look at this as an opportunity, seize it as citizens, and determine the best way to ensure that the nation gains.
For Channel 1 News, I'm Catherine Achieng'a.
In other news, 4 more people have succumbed to the COVID-19 disease, raising the country's death toll to 148. The worrying figures were released amid plans by the government to decentralize testing for coronavirus across all counties to aid in early detection of the disease, thereby enabling the regional administrative units to better handle the outbreak. Confirmed cases in the country now stand at 6,366 after 176 more people tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 24 hours.
With the recent announcement by the president that the reopening of the country will be dependent on many factors, among them the preparedness of counties, spotlight has shifted to the devolved units, even as they seek to attain the requirement of a minimum of 300 isolation bed capacity.
These 300 beds are not just simple beds. There is a proportion of them that are going to be set up as ICU beds, together with all the other supporting equipment that is required, the ventilators, and other equipment, the monitors that will be required for those who are critically ill.
Another headache facing the Minister of Health is the capacity within these administrative units to carry out COVID-19 testing, with only 28 facilities operational in the country, with efforts ongoing to bring the service closer to the people.
So we will continue to support decentralization of testing and bringing the testing closer to the people, because, as you know, this test also that we use, the Rt-Pcr, has a turnaround time of about 4 to 5 hours. It makes sense, therefore, to get it down there where it can be done immediately and the results obtained in good time.
Out of 2,419 samples tested, 176 positive cases were reported, with the total caseload now standing at 6,366. On a positive note, 26 people made full recovery, with the total of recoveries now rising to 2,039. On a sad note, however, the total number of fatalities rose to 148 after 4 more people succumbed to the disease. Nairobi had 99 cases, Mombasa 20, Kiambu 17, Migori 13, while Uasin Gishu had 10 new cases, with Busia and Kajiado having 4 cases each. Meanwhile, with tuberculosis being the 5th leading cause of death in Kenya, the ministry launched 2 policy documents to guide efforts aimed at fighting the disease in the country.
This new approach will ensure that latent tuberculosis infections are treated and protected from developing active disease. In addition, this adoption of an all-oral treatment for multi-drug resistance that replaces a painful and toxic injection that patients had to endure previously, it makes it easier for patients to tolerate and to adhere to this treatment.
Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
And now National Assembly Speaker Justin Muturi has cleared the air over the exact number of lawmakers who have been taken into isolation after contracting the coronavirus. In a communication to the House on Tuesday, the Speaker disclosed that only 2 legislators have tested positive for the virus, even has indicated that one has been discharged while the other is in stable condition receiving treatment in hospital. This coming as a section of members of the clergy sustained pressure on the government to reopen the economy, saying the effects of COVID-19 have been devastating to livelihoods.
National Assembly Speaker has confirmed that 2 members of Parliament have contracted COVID-19 and are undergoing treatment. Muturi, however, says the 2 lawmakers are under the care of medics and are in stable condition.
Members of Parliament, just like any other citizens, are susceptible to the disease. From the daily briefings from the Ministry of Health, it is obvious that the cases are rising in the country and no one is immune when exposed to the virus, not even members of Parliament, who also live among the communities.
According to the Speaker, one of the members of Parliament is recuperating at home while the other is in hospital.
Following the declaration of the coronavirus as a global pandemic, we took several measures to help in combating the spread of the virus in Parliament specifically and in the country in general. Some of these measures include the limitation of the number of members accessing the chamber at any one time, the designation of holding areas for members, the adoption of virtual sittings for committees where applicable, as well as working from home measures for members of staff.
In the meantime, some members of the clergy have raised concern over the effects of COVID-19 on the economy that has left majority of Kenyans without dependable sources of livelihood. The Migori County Interfaith Network says many businesses have closed down given that there are no suppliers, with a good number losing their jobs as a result of closure of mining companies. The religious leaders, led by their chairman Cornel Pesa of Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, said since the first case of COVID-19 was reported in the country, there has been an increase in crime, police brutality and increased domestic violence.
We are concerned that there has been an increase of brutality from the police, petty theft, an increase of domestic violence. There has also been an increase of immorality and drug, alcohol abuse. There has been an increase of culture and low class. There has been increase of extortion at police toll stations around the border points.
Let us clap for.
Elsewhere, as counties continue to work around the clock to create enough isolation wards, Murang'a-based food and beverage processor has launched a 6-bed isolation center to manage employees and mitigate the spread of the deadly virus. The isolation center will be used as a holding facility before the suspected patients are referred to the government facilities in either Murang'a or Kiambu counties for further treatment.
We need to get ready for this thing. And as I always say, a pandemic does not discriminate who is private, who is public. We are in this together. It's a war that we all must join hands and fight it together.
And now President Uhuru Kenyatta has lauded the efforts of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services in improving service delivery within Nairobi County and its environs. Speaking while receiving their 100-day performance report by Nairobi Metropolitan Services, the head of state said if well executed, the Nairobi model can advise the post-COVID-19 national recovery strategy.
On 18th March 2020, the Nairobi Metropolitan Services was commissioned by President Uhuru Kenyatta in efforts aimed at enhancing service provision in the areas of waste collection and disposal, water and sanitation, housing and urban development, transport and public works. The Nairobi Metropolitan Services was tasked with various roles that were to be achieved within 100 days that lapsed 2 days ago. And upon completion, President Uhuru Kenyatta has commended the work put in by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services in enhancing service delivery within Nairobi County.
Progress has been made in the areas of implementing the Nairobi Urban Mobility Plan, effecting the non-motorized transport strategy, reviewing the development approvals process, improving solid waste management, streamlining urban renewal projects, and reviewing and improving the governance and transparency models deployed in service delivery.
President Kenyatta challenging NMS to make Nairobi the model for post-coronavirus recovery strategy.
Roads are beginning to look cleaner, and we have hundreds of young people, especially those in vulnerable communities in the city, who are today earning a living, and thousands of households are receiving water closer to home. Road infrastructure is beginning to see the much-needed maintenance works, and pedestrian and cyclist corridors in our business districts are beginning to take shape. This is encouraging, but we cannot but emphasize that much work still remains to be done. But what NMS has demonstrated during this period is that the task before us is not impossible. It is indeed achievable.
The head of state pointing out that the National Hygiene Program, dubbed the Kazi Mtaani Initiative, aimed at empowering and creating jobs for youth residing within informal settlements, will play a pivotal role.
Young people from informal settlements of Mathare, Mukuru Kayaba, Mukuru Kwa Ruben, Mukuru Kwa Jenga, Kibera and Korogosho, amongst others, deployed across various projects in the last 3 months, has shown us that this model is indeed sustainable and will result in life-changing enterprise for our young people.
The president adding that focus must shift to urban development programs that will accelerate an integrated development model for an inclusive and modern city.
I encourage you to refine your annual work plans, budgets, and programs to target cumulative achievement of the development plans.
NMS Director General Mohammed Badi says his agency remains committed and determined to transform Nairobi into a smart city.
Future aspiration in this strictly, Your Excellency, is to make Nairobi a smart city through generation of power using waste garbage. Your Excellency, we are on course in achieving the directives in health sector in efficient management of COVID-19 pandemic, provision of health services, implementing Kazi Mtaani initiative.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Jackie Wambiru.
And now the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights has decried what it says is an increase in human rights violations during enforcement of the COVID-19 containment measures. In its report, dubbed Pain and Pandemic, Unmasking the State of Human Rights in Kenya in Containment of the COVID-19 Pandemic, the Commission has documented 10 cases of loss of life and 87 cases of inhuman and degrading treatment by law enforcement officers.
The report released today, titled Pain and Pandemic, Unmasking the State of Human Rights in Kenya in Containment of the COVID-19 Pandemic, sought to show the adherence of human rights even as the country adjusted to the new normal. Between 1st March and 6th June this year, KNCHR received 222 complaints. The report, citing police brutality, is a major challenge facing Kenyans, with a recorded 91 complaints against the Ministry of Interior and Coordination of National Government. Out of this, 54 were against the Kenya Police Service, 23 against Administration Police, and 8 against the General Service Unit.
From our documentation, we realized that these rights were actually violated, where we recorded 10 cases of death caused by the police during the enforcement of the various prevention and control measures, but also 87 cases of torture that were perpetuated on members of the public in the process of enforcing the various directives. And our verdict also was that some of the law enforcement officers, they used excessive force that was also arbitrary and that was unjustified.
The Commission are now working with partners, especially the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, in investigating and ensuring justice for victims, while lauding efforts established by government through the Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development and Public Broadcaster, KBC, to air educational programs for both primary and secondary students. Accessibility of educational materials for children in public schools and marginalized areas, it says, remains an issue of concern.
We laud the government in terms of coming up with alternative modes of studies for our children during this pandemic period and knowing that they are at home. But we also note that this system is not accessible to all learners due to various parameters. For instance, social status, we have had technological issues, geographical challenges, Other challenges, including perennial floods in various parts of our nation, has really disproportionately left a substantive number of children.
On housing, the Commission received concerns from citizens on the need for rental subsidies, besides faulting evictions that have taken place in areas where individuals have settled on government-owned land. The Commission holds that while the government may have legitimate reasons throwing citizens out in the cold in the middle of a pandemic, and lockdown could provide a rich breeding ground for the spread of COVID-19.
We all know the effect that it has in terms of the risk of contracting the virus, but also that it disproportionately targets and impacts women. We saw women being raped during the evictions in Kariobangi, persons with disability, children. So we really reiterate what has been an express recommendation from the United Nations to ourselves, calling on the government on suspension of all forms of eviction during this pandemic.
Caroline Kamar reporting for Channel 1 News.
And now the Anti-Corruption Court has granted a couple at the center of a multi-million shilling tax evasion case a 5 million shilling cash bail with an alternative bond of 10 million shillings. Joseph Gikonyo and his wife Lucy Kangai are accused of evading tax amounting to at least 38 million shillings from accrued investments.
Kenya Revenue Authority Customs Department Manager Joseph Gikonyo and wife Lucy Kangai appeared in court on Tuesday morning seeking bail after they were arrested for fraudulently evading tax amounting to about 38 million shillings. Appearing before Chief Magistrate Lawrence Mugambi, the defense team led by lawyer Abbas Esmal, while seeking bail, argued that the case was being criminalized.
And Your Honor, what is important, Your Honor, you will note that that figure of 38,692,694 appears as an assessment under the Tax Procedures Act 2015.
The accused were released on a cash bail of 5 million shillings with an alternative bond of 10 million shillings, with the court ordering them to deposit their passports.
Each accused shall deposit a cash bail of Kenya shillings 5 million and the alternative a bond of Kenya shillings 10 million for the short-like amount, and also deposit their passports in the court.
The prosecution was granted 7 days to present evidence, even as the defense team sought to have the pretrial heard by a different magistrate. The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission conducted investigations into allegations of possession of unexplained wealth by the two, identifying 20 clearing agents who are said to have acted for various importers and exporters and allegedly parted with bribes to have their containers released. Meanwhile, 2 former rugby players will face fresh trial after the High Court quashed a ruling that handed them a 15-year sentence for rape. Alex Alaba and Frank Wanyama will now have a second chance to prove their innocence after the court questioned the legality of evidence produced by one of the witnesses in the case. The two were convicted of gang raping a woman on February 10th, 2018. Well, this comes as a number of courts here at the Milimani Law Courts Nairobi continue to open up, though in a slow pace due to the COVID-19 that continues to wreak havoc across the globe, while the judges, the magistrates, and the people appearing at the courts adhering to the health regulations that have been put due to the COVID-19 pandemic, just to ensure that the scales of justice do not come to a standstill. Reporting for Scales of Justice from the Milimani Law Courts here in Nairobi, I'm Serafina Robi.
And now the Muslim community has raised objections to the Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019 that seeks to, among others, provide for the right to make decisions regarding reproductive health. The leaders, comprising of scholars and health experts, say the Susan Kihika-sponsored bill is meant to push for the adoption of foreign ideals, while its provisions on termination of pregnancy could be meant to provide a cover for abortion, which remains illegal under the Kenyan law.
While Nakuru Senator Susan Kihika, who is the drafter of the Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019, maintains the proposed law seeks to provide for the right to reproductive healthcare and set standards for reproductive health, opponents of the bill argues that it is open to abuse. The Muslim community say the proposed law is a contravention of the Constitution and instead want Article 26, subsection 4, repealed to provide for a definite direction.
Conscious of the backdrop of the recently released contentious findings on teenage pregnancies across the country, having considered the bill comprehensively, do hereby totally reject the Reproductive Health Care Bill 2019.
The group also calling for the shelving of the National Adolescent Sexual and Reproductive Health Policy. The Muslim leadership is now calling on the government to re-engage religious and all other stakeholders and come up with a fresh policy that is both religious-friendly and cognizant of our cultural values.
It takes parents, religious institutions, teachers and the entire community to bring up our well-adjusted and morally upright children, young adults.
The Reproductive Healthcare Bill 2019 has elicited varied debate with religious leaders poking holes on its contents. Yusuf Farah, Channel 1 News from the Jamia Mosque, Nairobi.
Now, statistics from the World Health Organization indicate that non-communicable diseases kill at least 41 million people each year across the globe. Now, the coronavirus pandemic has further complicated matters with mortality rates on the rise, an obtaining situation that has left health experts concerned. Let's take a look at these facts.
Non-communicable diseases are those diseases which are not passed from one person to the other, and they are normally chronic in nature. What I mean by being chronic in nature is that these are diseases which once you contract them, you have to learn how to live with them. They take a long time to be treated, and more often than not, they are lifelong diseases. Our commonest non-communicable diseases are, number one, cardiovascular diseases. These are diseases of the heart and the blood vessels. That is the system which delivers blood into our body. Number two, we have diabetes. This is a condition when you have your body not being able to utilize the blood, the sugar in the blood very well. Number three, we have the cancers. There are numerous types of cancers. And then the fourth commonest type of non-communicable diseases are the chronic lung diseases or chronic obstructive diseases, airway obstructive diseases like asthma.
Well, those are the facts. Let's now still focus on what's happening across the globe when it comes to the pandemic. And WHO is now warning that the coronavirus pandemic could be far from over in spite of gains made towards its containment. Over 10.4 million people around the world have been diagnosed with coronavirus, with more than 5.7 million having recovered. At least 509,000 people have succumbed to the virus, according to data from Johns Hopkins University.
World Health Organization Chief Tedros Adhanom says the coronavirus pandemic is not even close to being over. WHO urging governments to take appropriate steps to contain the virus, warning that the pandemic is speeding up and the worst is yet to come. These are several states in the United States opposing reopening plans amid a surge in coronavirus cases and hospitalization. The U.S. continues to be the hardest hit, with 2.6 million infections and over 128,000 virus-related deaths. And Germany will extend by 1 week the restricting measures enforced around one of the two districts that were put under lockdown on June 23rd. Some 600,000 people were forced into quarantine after more than 1,500 workers tested positive at a meat processing plant. And human trials of a new vaccine will be taking place in India next month. Hyderabad-based firm Bharat Biotech says tests in animals suggest that the vaccine is safe and triggers an effective immune response. This development coming as Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi says the country's COVID-19 death rate is under control, but that the country is at a critical juncture. And a global trial designed to test whether the anti-malarial drugs hydrochloroquine and chloroquine can prevent infection with COVID-19 is to restart after being approved by British regulators. Elsewhere, scientists in China have identified a new strain of flu that has the potential to become a pandemic. The strain is said to have emerged recently and is carried by pigs but can infect humans. Researchers are concerned that it could mutate further and spread easily from humans to humans. For Channel 1 News, I am Emily K. Badi.
Now, in yet another case of aborted staged money heist, police in Kiambu County are investigating an attempt to rob K-Unity's bank branch in Kikuyu. Area police boss Ali Nunu says some criminals had managed to gain access to the bank by drilling a hole leading to the facility from an adjacent building, which was housed in a bookshop.
K-Unit Bank Kikuyu branch in Kiambu County. It is business as usual. Bank employees reported to work early, only to encounter an attempted heist at the facility, evidenced by debris from an enormous hole on the wall. According to the police, the suspects who were still at large tried to break into the bank by drilling a hole through the wall of the building, an activity which police suspect has been in the works for some time.
They could not gain entry into the bank. We made efforts to call the manager, and this morning when she came, we opened the bank. It was discovered that there was a hole which was drilled from the bank.
Meanwhile, a group of Boda Boda operators and residents of Kirugoya town took to the streets to protest against County Assembly's war against Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru. Armed with placards, the demonstrators said that many projects were at standstill due to political standoff currently experienced between members of the County Assembly and the county boss.
Hawa viongozi wote, hata ma MCA, hata gavana, sisi ndio tuliwapigia kura. Kwa hivyo ile sauti kubwa iko kwetu. Kwa hivyo sisi kama watu wa Kirinyaga hatutaki mambo ya vita. Tunataka wawache gavana amalize kazi yake, hospitali yenye tunajengewa Kirugoya iishe.
Kwa hivyo hiyo miaka 2 kusikuwe na vita, Waiguru aendelee na ile kazi yake.
Elsewhere, there was drama in Lamu after area woman representative Ruwaida Mohammed stormed a diesel petrol station demanding restoration of power supply at Pate Island. Her move is said to have been prompted by lack of electricity in the island since the early part of the month, amid claims that efforts to have it restored have fell on deaf ears. Finally, a somber mood has engulfed Kilenga village in Lari, Kiambu County, after 2 boys lost their lives while trying to save their friend. While expressing their sorrows, the parents said it has been a tough time during this period of COVID-19, trying to warn their kids not to go near the river. The bodies were retrieved by the county government and taken to Upland's funeral home.
Well, it's time for Channel 1 NewsHour to take a break, but when we come back, we have details of what really is contained in the finance bill. President Uhuru Kenyatta has officially signed it into law. So that is coming up in the day's business.
Next on.
Ngoja niulize jamaa, nani hapa hivi amepimwa hivi majuzi?
Para kwa Mwangi, si ni 10 bob.
Sijasema kupimwa weight. Saa hizi kupimwa HIV ni haraka na ni bure.
Na maana mlikuwa mwanisengenya, si ndio? Ngoja. Hajatosha nakwambia huyu lazima tumpe makavu yake. Ndio mtiki umeanza hapa sasa.
Ushamjua alisababisha vijana zenu kuondoka.
Kukuwa na HIV si eti ni mwisho.
Wewe uko nayo?
Mimi nilishapima.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
Gaki, wawezaje unituangia simu saa hii Gaki? Saa zile tu nimewekelea matoke yangu kwa meza. Niko tayari kukula, wewe ukikula kwako mimi ukusumbua. Gaki, hii simu sisiki yake ya nani? Mimi ukusumbua ukikula kwako. Basi wewe ngoja nimalize matoke yangu tena utanituangia.
Kupata matoke, bonyeza *811 *965#. Bonyeza *811 *965#.
Je, ungependa kujua jinsi ninavyojizuia kuambukizwa au kuambukizana virusi vya korona? Ni rahisi. Mwanzo, ninaziendesha shughuli zangu zote za kikazi na hata za kibiashara kutoka papa hapa nyumbani kwangu. Baadaye, ninaitunza mwili wangu vyema kwa kuiweka katika hali iliyo sawa kupitia mazoezi ya mara kwa mara na pia lishe bora. Mwishowe, ninaungana na jamii yangu pamoja na marafiki zangu kupitia njia ya simu au mtandao ili kuzuia dhiki na upweke wakati huu mgumu. Kumbuka, haijalishi kama uko na virusi vya korona au la, salia nyumbani, uokoe maisha.
Welcome back. Let's now focus on what's coming up in the day's business. President Uhuru Kenyatta having signed into law 3 bills. What really do they contain? Let's take a look. Now, the President has this evening signed into law the 2021 budget, the 2020 finance bill, and the 2019-2020 third supplementary budget. The shillings 3.2 trillion 2021-2020 budget contains a 56.6 billion post-COVID-19 economic stimulus package and an allocation of 128.3 billion to the government's Big Four agenda. The 2020 Finance Bill Act contains several amendments targeted at cushioning Kenyans from the adverse effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Among the amendments contained in the Act includes the zero rating of VAT on maize, cassava and wheat flour for 6 months. The law also extends the zero rating of VAT on cooking gas for a year. The third 2019-2020 supplementary budget of 18.4 billion shillings includes a 5 billion shilling allocated to counties for coronavirus response and 3.4 billion shillings earmarked for COVID-19 allowances to frontline health workers. Well, those ones now are officially acts of parliament, which means they will be implemented. Now, in other news, the Kenya Airports Authority has completed implementation of COVID-19 protocols at all major airports in the country to ensure safety of users when air travel resumes. Speaking during the tour of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport, Transport Cabinet Secretary James Macharia says the increased level of preparedness signals readiness by Kenyans to commence aviation services, with domestic air travel being given priority.
A report by the International Air Transport Association, IATA, estimates that the local airline industry will incur a 77 billion shillings revenue loss this year. IATA also said that 193,300 people working in the sector could lose their jobs, while the Kenyan economy stands to lose 169 billion shillings in contribution by the aviation sector.
If we open our economy and we have the aviation sector coming back to what it was before, you find in terms of tourism, which, as you know, employs 1.6 million people. If you look at the flower sector, which also employs a lot of people, you know, it will grow as we open up the economy. Even normal business people.
Speaking during an inspection of the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport to inspect the measures put in place at the airport to ascertain the level of preparedness for resumption of passenger flight operations, Macharia said reopening of JKIA will spur growth in the regional financial capital of Nairobi, then continuously restart airports around the country.
So initially, we want to know whether we can fly within the country, Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Eldoret. And then the same protocols escalated to make sure we can now fly international, because this is the trend globally, whereby people are flying now from one country to the other.
And I must say that personally I'm very happy to see what has been done, what's been done at the airport. I think, barring a few things that the CS has mentioned, the airport is also ready to fly. So as soon as the President gives the go-ahead, we'll be ready to go. And I might add that from a Kenya Airways point of view, we all want to go as soon as possible. If we could fly tomorrow, we would fly tomorrow.
We are all worried that we have been grounded since March, and we are very anxious to take off. So we are waiting very, very anxiously to hear His Excellency, the President, announce the date for takeoff, both domestic and international.
On his part, the acting managing director for the Kenya Airports Authority, Alex Gitari, said that all its facilities have extraordinary measures put in place to ensure an adequate and reasonable number of passenger traffic can be handled.
We have made a lot of changes at the airports. As you can see where we stand, there are physical distancing markers scattered all over. We have installed more than 300 sanitization stations, and we continue to add more sanitization stations across the terminal buildings. The use of protective gear will be strongly enforced. So putting on face masks, use of gloves for our airport workers will also be strongly enforced.
The African Airlines Association, AFRA, said African carriers are staring at 858 billion shillings revenue loss this year due to COVID-19. Alanauko, Channel 1 Business.
Now customers will be able to access up to $500,000 of their deposits of up from 100,000 shillings in the event of bank collapse. The review, which takes effect on Wednesday, is part of the economic stimulus the Kenya Depositors Insurance Corporation has initiated to minimize risks amid COVID-19 pandemic. Chief Executive Mohamed Mohamud says the interventions will allow member institutions recover post-COVID-19.
In 2019, the Kenya Depositors Insurance Corporation rolled out a risk-based premium model to be used in assessing the annual premium payable by banks that applies different rates of premiums on member institutions based on their evaluated risk profile.
So we want to support the banks by giving them a breather for 6 months. So now, the statutory payment of the premium now has been extended to 31st December 2020.
According to CEO Mohamud, this will encourage transparency and accountability within the banking sector,
where we shall be working very closely with our membership who are the banks to ensure that we are with them in all the stages of their development, that if we see any slight problem, we can address it while the bank is still in operation.
During the same period, the corporation revised the coverage limit from 100,000 shillings to 500,000 shillings, but deferred its implementation, meaning that if and when a bank failed, depositors would receive up to 500,000 shillings of their deposits, unlike in the past when the limit coverage was capped at 100,000 shillings.
Our coverage now is revised from 100,000 to 500,000, which is amongst the highest in Africa. And this will translate into a coverage of 99% of the depositors in the banks. In the unlikely event of a closure of a bank, we shall cover 99% of the depositors.
Now, as part of its economic stimuli, the limit takes effect tomorrow.
With 500,000, we shall enhance the coverage to 658 billion. That's the coverage. So there will be a jump between 294 billion to 658 billion. So from midnight today, our exposure as KDIC moves also from 294 billion to 658 billion.
In efforts geared at cushioning banks from pandemic-induced diminished business, the corporation has extended the payment of annual premiums by 6 months. The annual premium will now be due at the end of December 2020 instead of July.
So the corporation further wishes to assure the depositors that our banking industry is sound and strong. Nobody should be worried about that.
The Kenya Depositors Insurance Corporation CEO Mohamud believes that these interventions will allow member institutions rebound post-COVID-19. Regina Manyara reporting for Channel 1 Business.
And now hoteliers at the coast are appealing to the six in the region to consider waiving some charges to support tourism sector recovery efforts. Kenya Coast Tourism Association Chairman Victor Shikaka says the industry has been adversely affected by the coronavirus pandemic and exuded confidence that the industry will bounce back once COVID-19 restrictions are relaxed. Here is our reporter Ann Boro with the details.
Tourism and travel sector have been one of the hardest hit sector globally as movement restrictions continue to be implemented in various parts of the world. At least 1.5 workers in the hospitality industry at the Kenyan coast have had to bear the brunt of the pandemic after a majority of hotels in the region ceased operations.
I'm talking about the 25,000 rooms that we have in the coast. That is from Lamu to Shimoni, 25,000 rooms. I'm not talking about Airbnb. I'm just talking about rooms that have been registered. There's a lot of hotels. There's a lot of people who are in the tour operators. We've got a lot of people in travel agents. We've got a lot of people in the beach operators who have been depending on tourism. That's about 1.5 million.
According to the Kenya Coast Tourism Association chairman Victor Shikaka, hotels are prepared for reopening of the economy once the cessation of movement ban is lifted in Nairobi and Mombasa. Shikaka called on the governors of the 6 counties under the Jumuiya ya Counties of Pwani Economic Bloc to consider giving waivers and reduce license charges to cushion them from further losses.
We want to ask for waivers because people have suffered and no company coming up will have the finances to immediately pay up for the different licenses, different taxes that we are required.
He acknowledged their preparedness to receiving guests and adhering to the stipulated guidelines in the fight against the coronavirus. Shikaka reiterated that they will be coming up with special packages for the domestic market as a means to slowly revamp the dead tourism economy.
All the hotels are prepared for domestic tourism. All the hotels are offering special rates. All the tour companies and travel agents and, of course, areas of entertainment are going to make special offers to all people over the country so that they can come here.
For Channel 1 Business News from Mombasa County, I am Ann Boru.
Now, Kenya's diaspora remittances recovered slightly in the month of May to 27.4 billion shillings as countries eased their COVID-19 restrictions. The latest Central Bank of Kenya data shows the 24% rise in remittances was driven by increased payments from the United States, United Kingdom, and South Africa. Cumulatively, diaspora remittances now stand at 299 billion shillings in the 12 months to May.
Global diaspora remittances have nosedived in the last 6 months as the COVID-19 pandemic continues to batter the global economy. Projections by the World Bank indicate that diaspora inflows are expected to drop by 20% this year as countries emerge from a painful virus-induced shutdown. The bank says remittances to low and middle-income countries are to be the hardest hit, dropping by 19.7% to 445 billion shillings. According to latest data by the Central Bank of Kenya, diaspora remittances increased by 24% in the month of May after Kenyans sent a total of 27.4 billion shillings from 22.1 billion shillings in the month of April. CBK says the highest increases in inflows came from the US, South Africa, Saudi Arabia, the United Kingdom, Qatar, Australia and Switzerland in that order. CBK data reveals that cumulative inflows in the 12 months to May 2020 totaled 298 billion shillings against 290 billion shillings in the 12 months to May 2019, reflecting a growth of 2.8%. Diaspora remittances fell by 9% in April to 22 billion shillings from 24.2 billion shillings in March after a sluggish performance in January and February.
Jubilee Holdings has acquired a 9.44% additional equity stake in Uganda's Bujagali hydropower project to the tune of 4.2 billion shillings. The transaction now pushes the Jubilee stake to 18.24%, which Group Chairman Niza Juma says will provide the firm with stable and consistent returns as it diversifies its investment portfolio.
This transaction increases Jubilee Holdings' stake in Bujagali Energy Limited Special Purpose Company that owns the 250-megawatt Bujagali hydropower project from 8.8% to 18.24%. The hydropower in Uganda has been constructed at a cost of 90 billion shillings, funded through equity and debt financing. Group Chairman Nizar Juma in a statement says, quote-unquote, "We are very pleased with this additional investment in Bujagali and we have confidence that it will continue to provide us with stable and consistent returns as has been the case with all of our existing investments," end of quote. The investment is part of the strategy to hold a broadly diversified and conservative portfolio of investments amounting to 111.2 billion shillings. According to the firm, transaction was triggered following the exit of former partner Seth Global in the year 2018. Accent Power remains the majority shareholder in Bujagali with 55.45% shares in BEL investments in clean, renewable energy on a commercial basis in emerging markets. Bujagali hydropower provides at least half of Uganda's power generation. And the Turkish government, through the Turkish Cooperation and Development Agency, TICA, has launched a 16,000 egg hatchery facility at Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research Organization in Kakamega County. The program launched a new breed of indigenous chicken that offers better yield called Kari Kienyeji chicken.
We want to support the women-headed households, especially to contribute their income through providing them improved kienyeji, local chicken.
The program coordinator, Emre Yuksek, says the program targets smallholder farmers to help contribute to their income as the new breed has less overhead costs when compared to their commercial counterparts.
You may be in the pit. You do not see how you could get out. But the good news is that you do not have to get by yourself. The Most High God is about to lift you out. He's about to turn the medical report. He's about to free you. He's about to open new doors, bringing new opportunities, new relationships.
Kupata The Pit, bonyeza star 811 star 967 hash. Bonyeza star 811 star 967 hash.
Welcome. Embakasi Utawala tuko locked. Ungem Autanyahururu Kasuku Massive.
Jeshi ya Nyeri Coast Maua Nakuru kwa locked mbaya.
Kigumo Ward na ambao wote wako ndani ya KBC Channel 1.
Akulaliki Wednesday bila the ref.
Mbotela Auta Idara Kitengela.
Kiambu County 33 Pipeline Meru anawakilisha.
Rongai Maboxa pale go down. Karatina Auta Mlolongo wana enjoy show. Lare Sub County Auta Githurai 45. Lanet Barracks tuko ndani yake. Okongo Auta Carnation Maragwa Seti
Nairobi.
Thika wako locked mbaya sana.
Watu wangu wa Nakuru Ngwaro.
Auta Gilgil.
Live kutoka Mazeras Bahati Massive.
Embo Thika Massive.
Siaya Shikambi Kakamega Bungoma County.
Kusia Boda Kisumu City. Malindi yote iko ndani ya the ref.
When I'm in Kenya, I tune in to the rave. Get your mind brave, focus, conscious.
Kenya,
East Africa.
Right.
Keep it locked.
On the next episode.
Now I'm looking for work.
What a coincidence. I'm looking for someone intelligent and talented like you.
Wow.
Earrings belong to her mother, and they're worth a lot of money. More than...
Antonio.
I'm sick and tired of living off your money.
And what do you plan to do?
Whatever it takes.
The remains of your parents will arrive from Mexico.
No, I don't want to see them. Please don't let them ask me to identify them.
No right to deny me on your ex-husband.
I didn't want to hurt him.
In love with Ramon.
And in the day's sports, former Harambee Stars captain Musa Otieno is stable and recovering after testing positive for coronavirus over the weekend. Otieno developed a fever last week and was rushed to hospital on Friday after complaining of breathing difficulties. Otieno had been on the forefront in distributing foodstuff to the vulnerable in Maringo through his Kick-Off to Hope organization. Over 600 families in Nairobi's Maringo estate have benefited from his project, with the former Harambee Stars coach having been involved in other charity events outside Nairobi before the COVID-19 lockdown. During his playing days, Otieno featured for AFC Leopards and Tusker FC before joining South Africa's Santos FC in 2011. He was later promoted to the role of assistant coach of Harambee Stars under Bobby Williamson and Stanley Ukumbi. Wish him a quick recovery. In other news, Sports Kenya has raised concerns over the delayed completion of the Ringu Stadium in Erie County that has been under construction for a period of 3 years. Sports Kenya is not happy with the contractor who has stalled the progress of the ground despite being paid, and have now warned that action will be taken should they not complete the stadium by 30th of September.
Make sure that this work is completed as soon as possible. For the infrastructure that we are putting up here, Kenya is a sporting country, and we want infrastructure that is multi-purpose, infrastructure that can be used to serve every sport, not just soccer, athletics. We want sports infrastructure that can serve cricket, rugby, hockey. So that's what we are looking for. And here at Ringu, there's a prime place because we have space for expansion and we can do more things than what we are doing right now. This is just starting the project.
Today we got an assurance that there's no money owed to the contractor by government. So really the ball is in the contractor's court completely. What we did not have for a long time was our plan of works, where we knew what he's supposed to do every week, so that we know that for you to meet this deadline of 30th, you need to have done this by next week, you need to have done this by the next week. So that if you come here next week and what he had said he's going to do is not done, then you know there's no way he's going to meet the deadline.
And now English Premier League side Manchester United will be out to revive their Champions League hopes tonight when they play away to Brighton and Hove Albion. United is 5 points behind fourth place Chelsea with 7 games to go, while Brighton is 6 points above the relegation zone. In Spain, champions Barcelona have an uphill task in claiming top spot in La Liga as they host Atletico Madrid at Camp Nou. And now English Premier League Chief Executive Richard Masters has expressed regret over the mass gatherings which followed Liverpool's Premier League title win, reiterating that fans must take responsibility for their own actions. Thousands of people celebrated on the city's waterfront on Friday despite restrictions on mass gatherings because of the coronavirus pandemic. Liverpool head coach Jurgen Klopp has urged Liverpool fans to do what is right following scenes of celebrations after the club won its first league title in 30 years. The club, in a joint statement with the police council and a fans group, condemned the conduct of some of the fans who gathered in the city as wholly unacceptable, with Mayor Joe Anderson saying that the event brought Liverpool Football Club and the city of Liverpool into disrepute. Well, it's time for us to wrap up Channel 1 NewsHour. As always, Kenya, thank you for watching. My name is Catherine Achieng'a, and our sign language interpreter this evening is Lucy Mwaura. Let me now leave you with the weather report by Irene Muchuma Odimi, and she tells me today she will be giving you an update of what to expect when it comes to weather for the next 5 days. She has the weather report for the next 5 days. Should you carry an umbrella or not? We are getting into July. Find out from Irene Muchuma Odimi in the weather report. Good night and God bless you.
That's true, Kate, but before I give you the 5-day weather forecast, the Kenya Meteorological Department has issued an alert. From today to the 6th of next month, cold weather conditions will increase over most parts of the country. Counties to be affected include Nairobi, Murang'a, Kirinyaga, Bomet, and Narok. The temperatures would go as low as 15 degrees Celsius, and this will mainly happen from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. These are some of the pictures we're getting for you from Narok County. It will be cool and cloudy in the capital Wednesday morning, equally in Erie and Meru. Wet conditions will be experienced at the coastal strip, and that will mainly be in Kwale. The rest of the country will experience sunny conditions. A few changes, though, in the afternoon. Kitale, Eldoret, Kakamega, and Nakuru will experience showers accompanied by thunderstorms of a few places. The rest of the country will continue to experience sunny conditions. Temperatures have slightly gone down in Mandera. We're expecting maximum of 34 degrees Celsius. The capital will experience maximum of 24 degrees Celsius. Wondering how it will be for the next 5 days in the capital? This is it. Wet conditions will be experienced on Thursday and Friday. The highest temperatures in the next 5 days will stand at 26 degrees Celsius. What about for you in Mombasa? Sunny conditions will prevail, though wet conditions will mainly prevail during the morning hours and late in the evening. That is the weather here in the home country. Up next is the international forecast. My name is Irene Muchuma Odimi. Have a blessed day ahead.
Hello viewers, my name is Reverend Anthony Maina, ACK St. Faith Megadini Church in the Diocese of Mombasa. I'm privileged to bring the word of comfort and encouragement to you today. We are sharing from Ezekiel chapter 37, verse 1 to 28. Our topic is God who knows. God who knows. Shall we pray? Father, in the name of Jesus, you are all-knowing, and there is nothing that can be hidden from you. We surrender our lives to you, knowing that you are in control, and there is nothing difficult with you. Use me as a vessel as I share your word with your people. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. As I have said, our topic is God who knows. And from this text, we see that God brought Ezekiel out by the power of the Holy Spirit and set him in the middle of a valley which was full of dry bones. Ezekiel writes, I saw a great many bones on the floor of the valley, bones that were very dry. It was during this time when God posed a question to Ezekiel, Son of man, can these bones live? It must have been a very challenging question to Ezekiel, but full of faith in God. The Bible records that Ezekiel answered, O sovereign Lord, you know. Sovereign Lord, you know. I know members, and at such a time, there are so many questions that are glaring to us. There are so many challenges that are ahead of us, and we are asking ourselves questions. Will these dry bones live? And we see that Ezekiel's humble response to God really brings God to command him to prophesy to these bones. And I want to challenge all of us that we need to prophesy faith to every dry situation in our lives. We need to speak once of faith to our businesses, once of faith to our children. I know there is an outcry about our children, but we need to prophesy faith and victory to our children. When Ezekiel prophesied life to the bones, the Bible records that within a twinkling of an eye, those bones came together and they got flesh, and ultimately they stood in that valley as a great army that the Lord had raised. What does this tell us? The children of Israel had despaired. The children of Israel, when they were in captivity, looked at themselves as good for nothing. And I know at such a time, some of us are feeling hopeless. We think that we are good for nothing. Even the heathens are ridiculing Christians because of the challenges that we are going through. But I want to encourage all of us that we focus on God, because our God is so powerful. As I have said, the exiles felt to be useless and hopeless like the dry bones. Brethren, let us not lose our focus. Let us call upon the name of the Lord, who is able to raise and to give life to that which is dead. I know some of us are counting our businesses dead. We are counting our churches dead. But can we prophesy life to those businesses? Can we prophesy life to our country? The political situations are very challenging, but I know with God, everything is possible. Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, in the name of Jesus Christ, I want to speak victory upon every family. I want to pray that you may restore that marriage. You may restore that relationship. You may restore that unity in that family. You may restore that business. May you restore healing to the whole world, and especially to our country, Kenya. We trust in you And we believe in you because you are miracle working God. In the name of the Father, of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you. May God bless us. He knows every part of our lives. God bless you so much.
Vera Beauty College.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College, with branches in Nairobi, Eldoret, Thika, and Meru. Did you know that we are a TVET approved institution? We offer courses in fashion design, interior design in soft furnishing, event decoration, flower arrangement, event planning, hairdressing, barbering and dreadlocks, beauty therapy, makeup, nail technology, spa massages, teaching skills, TOT, solo business management, and many more. Register now and visit our website on www.verabeautycollege.com. You can also call on 0725 923 550 Nairobi branch, 0728 087 689 Eldoret branch, 0722 22 7428 Thika branch, 0725 000 706 Meru branch. Vera Beauty and Fashion College, a TVET approved institution.
Take on Tech, a weekly program that comes to you every Tuesday via KBC Channel 1. It's a program about technology concepts and debates, and brings them to you in a non-tech way. This is usually done by a panel of experts. In today's program, we are going to be looking into guidelines on conducting yourselves online. Maybe it's meetings, maybe it's school. And it is because during this COVID time, we have seen a lot of online engagement through by offices, by organizations, by individuals. And so we just want to look at some of the guidelines that you should adopt while you embrace online meetings or online work. And to help us understand how to do that, we have Thomas Kaberi. Thomas Kaberi is a sales and digital culture consultant. He will be discussing the guidelines with Victor Capillo. Victor is an ICT lawyer and techie in business and human rights. Karibuni, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Now, Kaberi will go straight to starting this program. As a digital consultant, can you please tell us what is this digital culture all about?
Yeah, so digital culture is basically the combination of attitudes, expectations and practices that help people to get the most out of technology. So in digital transformation, we said that there are three aspects that of an organization or a community that needs to be addressed when you want to transform them to more of a digitalized community. And the first one is a skill set. Do people have the skills that help them to make the most of technology? The second one is tool set, which is basically equipment, the platforms, the technology that enables them to do things in a better way, more efficiently, or to make better decisions. The third one is the mindset, and that is the culture aspect. So the culture aspect has to do with the expectations, attitudes, and practices that people do that help them to get the most out of their technology.
I'm interested in the question of mindset. Do you mind elaborating what you mean by that? And in relation, say, to staff and organizations?
Yeah, so mindset is probably the toughest part of digital transformation, and that's because technology is quite straightforward, and there's a lot of amazing options and tools out there for you to achieve any technology goals you might want to achieve, or you can even, and there's also skill out there that can help you build it. So the issue of hard skills and the issue of technology are the easiest part. The mindset of helping people to adapt to new power structures, helping people to adapt into new ways of doing things, new definitions of success, new ways of attributing and tracking that success, that's the difficult part. So for you to be successful, you definitely need to upgrade your culture in order to make the most out of your technology. So in terms of organizations and what they need to do, or even communities and individuals.
As somebody who has been working in this area, and as organizations have been on either lockdown or partial lockdown in the last 3 months, what is your general feeling of how organizations are conducting themselves online?
Okay, so how are organizations conducting themselves online? Okay, that's very interesting, because a lot of opportunities have emerged, and also a lot of challenges have emerged. So a lot of organizations that are service-based, which is a huge part of our economy, service-based institutions might find it easy to transfer their roles and some of their functions into online or into the virtual space. But organizations that require either a combination of the services and the actual production of items, or because of their security levels, or because of their just manual way of operating, they're not able to transfer some of those functions to the virtual space, those ones will struggle. However, it is also different in the sense that the interaction part of work has also been hugely challenged. So if people who are used to sit down together in an office to make decisions, now they are having to reorganize that. If supervision was by physical monitoring of people, that is having to change, and those are the now behaviors or practices that we need to relook at, and they are informed by our attitudes towards work. So if people feel like they need to have somebody looking over other people for work to go on, that's going to be a challenge. If people feel like technology it poses a risk to the organization, that then means that they'll feel even more at risk. But we need to evaluate the practices we've had even at our workplaces and start determining how useful or how practical they could be on the virtual space. Because even if this crisis passes, another one could come, which might not be as hefty as this one in terms of the impact, but we could face many other challenges, because now our customers are now used to getting serviced online. Our clients now are getting used to being met online. So that means that certain effects of COVID or of COVID will remain even after we go back to what people are calling the old way, or post-COVID, or after recovering from this situation. There are certain aspects, or there are new expectations that have emerged. Now, for example, like I used to do about 4 to 5 meetings, right? And now, because I don't have to move around town for these meetings, I'm able to do a lot more meetings. If a lot more people are thinking like that, then they will demand that you do more of calls and more of meetings, virtual meetings rather than physical meetings. That means then you still need to adapt to the new way of doing things. I think then organizations need not look at this as a passing wave, but rather as an opportunity whose benefit you can reap for even longer.
Okay. I like that point about the need for organizations to evaluate the current practices at workplace. And I think we will come back to that question of, how COVID is going to influence the way organizations work after this season. Now, Victor, you are a practicing lawyer you are an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. And the judiciary has actually been commended during this COVID time for making a high number of rulings. Actually, there has been, there was a day that one judge made 54 rulings, I think in one afternoon, and that was quite something for this country. Now, as a practicing lawyer and advocate of the High Court, how would you say the judiciary is faring in responding to COVID-19?
Thank you very much, Grace, for that question. I think the judiciary has made significant progress compared to what it had done in the previous years. I think for our viewers, it's important to just note that currently the case backlog, I think as technology has also, and the COVID period has enabled, because of people not coming to courts, I think it has also allowed judicial officers time to write their judgments and write their decisions, which usually they won't have time if they are present in court, and they also have to look for time to work on those decisions at home. So there's some benefit, but it also shows that there's actually a capacity gap in the sense that the judiciary doesn't have quite a number of officers to enable it discharge and complete cases in time, which is something that the judiciary will need to think about. And also the progress, we can see quite a number of courts across the country. Almost all the courts now have embraced technology in one form or the other, which, looking at the previous attitude and what Thomas had just mentioned, that the mindset, when you have people, not just judicial officers and the judiciary as an institution, but also practicing advocates and other court users being unwilling, and because we want to practice the law as we know it, coming before a judge and making your case, but now you have to stand behind a screen and try to make your point across. So the development that is actually progressive is the rapid adoption of technology to enhance service delivery within the judiciary, whether it is in terms of video conferencing, but also the judiciary has introduced e-filing, which previously you could take a while or a long time just finding the right registry to file your case. But now with an online process, it has also simplified the bureaucracies that exist, and making payments have been much more efficient through M-Pesa and KCB banking. So it's actually possible to transact judicial business much quicker. Just to mention that earlier, last week, I was in court in Erie before the High Court, and I woke up, I took 10 minutes, and I finished my matter. So we can see that I didn't have to travel to Nyeri and come back. That would have taken a whole day, but in 10 minutes I was already done with my matter. So we can see how video conferencing that has been embraced by the judiciary is actually helping case management to make things move much quicker. So that is actually progressive, and we look forward to more technology and more solutions to enhance the speed that justice gets to Wanjiko, because currently it takes at least 3 years to conclude a case, and with technology, I think we can make those numbers that timeline much less. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Quite interesting that you were able to attend that matter in Nyeri, because I was going to ask whether the use of technology is only happening in Nairobi or whether it's happening in other courts, but you have just confirmed that it is happening in Nyeri. And I would want to hear whether it's happening in Turkana. So as you tackle that, you mentioned there's an issue of capacity. Would you please tell us what areas of capacity building need to happen so that then we can make use of technology in our courts more efficient?
Thank you. Capacity is a big issue, especially if you look at how the judiciary was transitioning or embracing the technology after announcement that the courts were going to start being open, is that judicial officers were told embrace technology, but there was no systematized approach or guidance in terms of what technology to adopt, how to do it, and even procedures that are required to be followed. So first, you find that there is an infrastructure issue because not all courts are connected to internet. Equipment, not all judicial officers or court stations have the right equipment or the right internet connection to facilitate video conferencing. There are also the capacity issues in terms of using the specific technology. Initially, we had issues of moving between Teams, Skype, or Zoom, and now at least the courts are starting to standardize and make Teams the standard one that courts are using across the country. So there was a capacity gap in terms of even the judicial officers understanding when to put the mic on, when to put it off. So in terms of usage of the technology, there are challenges there. Also, on the part of other court users, that means the prosecution or even practicing advocates who are appearing before the courts. You find that not so many people are familiar with the various technologies that are being adopted, and also because of the fragmentization. Today you're appearing before Mombasa High Court, they're using Teams. Tomorrow you come before Nairobi and they're using Zoom. Tomorrow, the next day, they're using Skype. So it brought about confusion also amongst the practicing advocates who are coming before the courts, because they didn't understand the different ones, because all of them, they don't operate the same. Challenges in terms of process. How do you join? When do you join? And that information being available. So there was also a bit of a challenge in terms of just judiciary availing information and in a standardized way on their website or on the social media pages and things like that, that could enable court users and people who actually have cases before the courts to actually enable them follow up on their cases. So we've seen quite a bit of gaps, whether it is institutional, infrastructural, or even human, in terms of just how to transition from physical practice in courts to also to use technology. So, but what we're actually seeing now is that there's a lot of progress. People have now started understanding how to use the systems. People have learned that you need to buy bundles and make sure that you have a stable internet connection. People are starting to upgrade their devices. Those ones who are joining with phones which had not so very good quality cameras, they've also tried to upgrade. The judiciary has also upgraded, although challenges still remain in terms of even just availability of the equipment, because the government procurement procedures are not as quick to enable the procurement of some of those things which are required. They didn't have time to do a lot of training for the staff, so those ones, I think many people are learning on the job. Practicing advocates are also, we've seen LSK trying to make some efforts to train lawyers on how to join cases online and how to file online. So the challenges are there, but also we can see some positive actions are being taken across most of the courts in the country. So there's good progress.
Okay, it's interesting. I think I was seeing on Twitter, one of the judges had been quoted as saying that every time he's online, he spends so much time asking, "Can you hear me, my lord? Can you hear me, my lord?" And he was just wondering what his neighbors think, or who do they think he was addressing. Okay, Thomas, speaking from where Victor has left on issues of capacity, and as somebody who works with organizations in enhancing digital culture, are there other areas that need to be strengthened for organizations so that they're able to work effectively?
Okay, I think standardization is one thing. I think it's important that that has been mentioned. So that is not a challenge that is isolated to any organization that, like the judiciary, which has to adapt very quickly under very strenuous circumstances. So it is a good, I think it's a good opportunity that people have had to learn while under pressure, because sometimes change has to be necessitated by circumstances like the one that we are in today. So the organizations, I think since it's been now over 2 or 3 months now that we're going to the 3rd month of COVID, of the shutdown, I can say, I think it has dawned on very many people that the only opportunity they have right now is to adapt very quickly, because the people who started adapting a month ago, they are ahead right now. They have settled down. They've cleaned up their house. They've dealt with the major issues, and it is a stage that everybody will have to go through. So the earlier, I think, the better for anybody who embraces the situation we are in. What are the things that organizations need to do? I think people now need to start thinking about policy instead, beyond tactics, because it was just survival and it all looked like survival tactics. So policies need to be reviewed, because there are certain things that were tradition to a lot of organizations. There are certain practices that were very precious to organizations, and I think those need to be reviewed at a policy level, so that now people don't start feeling like they're pushing the envelope rather than they are really matching up to the expectations that are set. So policies need to be relooked, and also a bit of training. And training is not too difficult. I mean, getting online nowadays is as easy as just switching on the camera on your phone. But how you position it, how you dress up for the meeting, how you adjust your tone for the meetings, how you settle down, the way you approach the meetings, that has to be as probably formal as it normally was in your office. And the client interactions, people have been a bit understanding in terms of how casual you can be, but now people are realizing that since this is going to be the way of life, then we need to take it as seriously as we need to. So policies need to be...
Thomas, I wanted to pick that line about being serious about online operations in the same way as you are to if you're doing these things physically.
Yes.
But I want us to take a short break, and when we come back, you will pick it from there.
Okay.
We are talking about guiding principles of working online with Victor Capio and Thomas Kaberi. When we come back, we will start with Thomas giving us guidelines or some of the tips of still continuing to work online.
No, I have not come here to create a problem. Ashok should get his award. He deserves it. I just wanted to say that there is a tradition that is being followed.
Mother, following non-violence is difficult. In the path that I have chosen. What if I become a commander and go for a war? It is the duty of a warrior to protect his kingdom and his subject.
Embakasi utawala tuko locked. Ungem Autanyaururu Kasuku Massive.
Jeshi ya Nyeri, Maua na Kuru wako locked mbaya.
Kigumo Ward na ambao wote wako ndani ya KBC Channel 1.
Akulaliki Wednesday bila the ref.
Mbotela auta idara Kitengela.
Kiambu County 33 Pipeline Meru anawakilisha.
Rongai maboxer pale go down. Karatina auta Mlolongo wana enjoy show. Lare sub county auta Githurai 45. Lanet Barracks tuko ndani yake. Okongo auta Carnation Maragwa Seti
Nairobi.
Thika wako locked mbaya sana.
Watu wangu wa Nakuru Ngwaro.
Auta Gilgil.
Live kutoka Mazeras Bahati Massive.
Embo Thika Massive.
Siaya Shikambi Kakamega Bungoma County.
Kusia Boda.
Kisumu City.
Malindi yote iko ndani ya the ref.
When I'm in Kenya, I tune in to the rave. Get your mind brave, focus, conscious.
Kenya.
East Africa.
Right.
Keep it locked.
Calling out to Africa.
Take on Take, we are back, looking at guiding principles of working online. Before we took a break, Thomas Kaberi was telling us, giving us some of the areas that need strengthening when you are working online. And Kaberi, maybe you can still continue and give us some of these tips that that people need to know, like some of the basics that they need to have in place. You did talk about dressing. What's that? You did talk about time. What's that? Please break it down for the viewer.
Okay, as we said, I think the idea of practices is something that we need to really be keen about. You know, when you're working from home, it's easy to take the relaxed posture that you have in your home to the meeting that you're having online from your home. And I think that's probably something that needs to be looked at. It's important to evaluate the culture and the level of formality for a meeting. So if you're going for a serious meeting and you know the people in that meeting require or at least expect a certain level of formality, try to match up to that level, both in your speech and in your dressing, in your presentation, yeah, so that we maintain the seriousness on issues that as they deserve. So the other idea is also being very well prepared for the meeting in terms of setting up the environment, so that if you're having a meeting in your home, please notify the people in your house that you're going into a meeting and it's a serious one. And now I see it is becoming more of a trend. People are just allowing the kids to come into the meeting and say hi to everybody in the meeting. I think that's a cultural trend that's emerging. We are yet to see how that goes. But at least let people know that family is around and you might be interrupted, so that at least they expect it. So those are the kinds of things that we need to start matching up to. And the other thing is the length of the meeting. I mean, while people online might be very forgiving, they're also very distracted. So if you have very long online meetings at home, at some point people, I've read that 45 minutes is probably the cap, yeah, of having an effective online meeting, because after that people get distracted. You'd rather have a couple of short meetings, 2 or 3 of them, rather than just have one long meeting. So you have one meeting and then later on in the day have a second one, and probably the following day have a third one. So instead of having a very long meeting, half of which is being interrupted and people are distracted. Okay,
you talked about formality, maintaining formality, and to depict that you're also very serious. And I'm just interested in finding out from Victor, when, what is expected of participants during these virtual hearings. For example, if it's a court hearing, we usually see people bowing down, when they're addressing the magistrate or the judge. What's expected of people during a virtual hearing? Are they expected to bow down?
Thank you very much, Grace. Well, most of the sessions are conducted while people are sitting. So in terms of how the process is going, is a small nod of the head like that will suffice. And of course, a number of all these virtual court hearings are being conducted as closely as possible to court proceedings. However, with a few modifications, we are expected as court users to be formally dressed and to conduct ourselves formally, just the same way we'd conduct ourselves before the ordinary open court session. And that means being properly attired, speaking the right language, and being in a quiet room, being prepared for the session, and so on and so forth. So we are not expecting, because then it would be demeaning of the court, or be disrespectful of the court if I appeared, for example, in court in the morning wearing a t-shirt and wearing a hat. The judicial officer would not know whether this is a practicing advocate or is that the brother of the advocate who is actually before the court. So in terms of helping to, in terms of identification, it's important for counsel to be properly attired so that the court also recognizes that actually counsel is in the room and we are not the client who is coming before the court. The same rule also should apply to judicial officers, because you also don't expect to come before a magistrate or a judge and the magistrate is wearing a kitenge And you're wondering, am I in the right room? Am I in the right court? And who is who here? So when people are properly attired and they conduct themselves properly, then it also helps in the dispensation of justice and also maintains the respect that the courts deserve. Thank you.
Okay, great. Kaberi, we come back to you, and we have consistently seen an increase in these online meetings. And of course, even schools are also conducting class sessions using online platforms. And what sometimes has emerged is that the person conducting the online meetings will say, I have lost the rights of muting your microphone, or I am no longer the host. Somebody else has taken, that hosting right. This morning, my daughter was, having classes, and I think maybe the teacher was having challenges. And one of the girls in the classes actually kicked all of them out of the classroom. So what is the role of a convener in an online meeting?
Okay, so I think there are a couple of things there. So there's the skill aspect where the person who is hosting the meeting needs to be conversant with the tool they are using in terms of the program they're using, whether that's Skype or Zoom or whatever other program that can be used. So the host needs to familiarize themselves. You can easily Google up a YouTube video that demonstrates how to do this. Use the particular tool that you're using. So the other aspect is also the social aspect, helping other people to know that etiquette is still primary even within meetings. So I think there are other factors around that also, which I should mention, which is safety and security and privacy. So there's usually a lot of debate around safety and security, but privacy is really the first line of defense. So people need to be sure that they are creating enough privacy, they're taking the privacy precautions within a meeting. So for example, whether that's Zoom or Skype, make sure that you're sending links only to those people that should be attending, and you're also not allowing everybody into the meeting as they in and out of the meeting as they wish. So that means that you're in control of who is in the room, sort of the virtual room, and who is not. And if anybody needs to come in, you should be able to admit them and also allocate certain levels of rights. So that means then that you need to educate people. So if it's a school, and this is the policy aspect that I was talking about. If it is a school, then kids and their parents need to be notified of what they can and cannot do during class while the class is in session. The other thing I would like to mention is that there's a responsibility to parents, especially when it comes to kids. It's very, very important that you keep monitoring your child while they're online. I think that's really, really important. Leaving your child for hours on end online without having an idea of what's happening or which sites they are visiting, or even if they're attending a class, whether they attended the class and how that class went, that sort of can be almost irresponsible. So it's very, very important that that parents take time to monitor their children even when class is ongoing, because there has been incidences where classes have been interrupted by other people who have been malicious. So that's important, and therefore even the skill set. Fortunately, kids and technology is like fish to water, so they take it very quickly. But also, it's important to sort of like enforce that level of responsibility and make sure that they have the right skills, whether they are teachers or whether they are kids attending class.
Victor, do you have anything to comment to add on to that?
Yes, I think something that sometimes is often forgotten is because these services are online, to have a working internet connection and to have a backup internet connection. So if you're using your Wi-Fi at home, then also just make sure that you also have some bundles on your phone, so that in case the internet goes off or the power goes off, you have another alternative source of an internet connection, because we sometimes take it for granted. Things like making sure that your microphone and your speakers and video are actually working before the meeting. When I was in court last week, one of the advocates who was on the other side had joined, but the microphone was not working, so we had the session and they couldn't hear, so we had to, somebody had to be explaining to him what is happening on the text. So you can see that when you've not set up your computer before, it can also give you challenges after. There are things around timekeeping. We usually, as Africans, we have our African time, or is it the Kenyan time? And when a call is at 9 o'clock and you want to join halfway in between, it makes it difficult for other people who are already in the room to want to start giving you an update of what has been happening, what has been said. So generally, timekeeping then becomes important. And also as for courts, when the court starts at 9 and you're not there, then if your matter is called and you're still trying to fiddle with your gadgets, trying to get the connection, it might also bring a few challenges here and there. So I think those are little things that we can also consider. Other than that is just to minimize disruptions, sitting in a quiet room, making sure that there's enough light so that people can actually see you, making sure that your computer is in good working order, and that the environment that you're in, the people have been notified that you're going to be on a call, so that there's less disruptions. And I think sometimes the background, some people want to sit and put a shelf, some people want to make sure that the other parts of the house are actually visible. I think it's also important to avoid sitting in a place where the background is destructive, because people will not focus on you who is talking, but they'll want to see what books do you have on that shelf, which color is your sofa. So if we try to sit in a place where there's a plain background, which is probably white, is useful to minimize disruptions for other people. I've also noticed that there are people who take pictures of them in these sessions. I think it's also important to minimize taking photos, especially if you're appearing in court and you want people to know it is because if you don't take pictures in court, we should also not take pictures of ourselves and broadcast them to say that we are participating in court sessions. So I think those would be useful places to start.
Okay, we have 5 minutes to go, and I really would like us to just focus on what are some of the major trends that we should look forward to post-COVID-19 in terms of technology. And maybe, Victor, you can pick it from there before we come to Thomas, because you've told us that you went to, you attended a court in Erie from your house. Will that, for example, translate into lowering legal fees, say, if we were to embrace technology?
That's not going to happen. Interesting. Well, we want the fees to go up because we will be working harder for our clients. But I think what we should expect moving forward from the judiciary is to see the opportunity in using technology to fast track the hearing of and determination of cases, and make sure that Wanjiku and all other court users who appear before court have their matters completed in good time. And so moving forward, if the judiciary were to recruit more officers, then you can see a situation whereby they can quickly conclude matters without having to wait for parties. Because a number of the times, what delays cases is people who, my mother is sick, I went to the village, or I was delayed in traffic. So those things can be minimized, and people can actually participate in court proceedings from wherever they are. And I hope that the judiciary can enhance and increase the opportunities for use of technology in court practice, especially even to places which do not have court stations, that they can actually use it, especially in prisons and other detention facilities, for example, where the prisoners have to be moved to court stations, that those ones can now end, and the cases can be heard online and remotely through video. Things about having meetings, those ones can be done online, and hopefully we reduce the case backlog so that when you file a case today, within 3 months, you've gotten your decision. And it will help because many people have so many cases in court, and if there's a solution, and that is technology that can help, then I think it should be embraced moving forward.
Yes, I was actually appalled the other time, Victor, when the chief, there was a report in I think in one of our media, saying that if you have a matter now, and a matter that has to do with land issues, that the earliest you can expect a determination is in 2 years. And I was just thinking, what happens to people who have very urgent cases or who are desperate to actually have their land matters determined? And what you have said, I think, is a good thing if the judiciary can consider the use of technology to actually dispense with some of these matters. Kaberi, to you now, what are some of, what should we expect with organizations post-COVID?
I think a lot of organizations have already tasted the benefits despite the strenuous circumstances they've had to operate in. And I think the moment that people have tasted some of these benefits, one of them I think is going to be real estate. A lot of people in the real estate now are asking what will happen to people who've realized all of a sudden that they don't need as much room as they needed for especially commercial space. So if you had these organizations that had people coming into the office every day and they had 3 floors of space, some of them are wondering, why do we need 3 floors of space while we see clearly that people can work from home? Secondly, at a performance level, people have now had the opportunity to assess whether the work from home is actually a concept that can be utilized. And for a lot of people, I can speak for myself, and I work in a tech company, so that helps. We've seen that people don't have to travel to the office, people don't have to travel to client meetings, people don't have to travel to meetings, and in fact people are only coming to the office just to take a break from home. And we've realized that cuts a lot of taxi costs. It cuts a lot of time for the people who have to come back and forth. If somebody has to travel, say for example, from Thika Road all the way to Kilimani, that's almost an hour and a half one way. That's 3 hours every day that person just sits in a vehicle without much productivity. So I expect that a lot of organizations will look at these benefits and start looking at how they can make them more permanent. The other issue is I think it's going to disrupt our culture in the sense that even like a lot of times people didn't think that even the mama mboga or the lady who fries fish can actually be onboarded into the digital world. Now, and digital does not mean really an application really, but now people are calling that lady to make food, to prepare whatever it is, and then have a border person deliver it to their house. So that aspect is going to change, and at a very small scale we can see that. In government, I can see that a lot of government organizations now are doing online meetings. The other week we had a presidential conference online, and I was like, over 20 heads of states were on a digital platform having a Pan-African meeting, and important decisions were made. And I think that is going to, when people start relooking at the cost benefit of these kinds of operating, at a cost level, people are going to embrace a lower cost way of doing things. In terms of culture, I don't believe that meetings will go away entirely because we are still very social human beings. I was surprised the other day that as soon as the hours were extended, people are very happy to go to restaurants and order mutahi kagwes. So I think I think that the professional aspect, because it's more objective and it has cost implications, that might change. But I think that people will still want to meet. I miss a lot of people that I used to attend a lot of conferences with, and I can't wait for the time that I'll be able to see them again. Yes.
All right. I think that sums it up. You've summed it up very well. And some of the issues that I would just like to highlight is when you have that online meeting, please take a shower, keep time, get dressed, avoid, things that can disrupt your meeting, or things that, in the background, like Victor pointed out, that people want to see how your house looks like, what type of a sofa you keep in the house. So please turn that and have a wall that then people will not be disrupted. So thank you very much. We have been talking to Thomas Kaberi, who is a sales and digital culture consultant, and together with Victor Capio, who is an ICT lawyer and a techie in business and human rights. And they've been talking to us about the guiding principles of working online. Thank you so much, gentlemen. And until next week, when we have another program on Tech on Tech, my name is Grace Gidaiga. Please remember to wear a mask, sanitize, keep social distance, and please obey the guidelines from the Ministry of Health. Goodbye.